Are you the quantum mechanics?
Yes, we're the Quantum Mechanics. We're the paranormal podcast for the believers, the doubters, and everyone in between. We've had a little bit of paranormal weather this week. It was so hot yesterday. I was lying in bed going, make it stop. It was hotter than a dragon's sneeze.
It was a 2-shower day.
Definitely a 2-shower day. I'm really keen to get into this episode because I've got an inkling of what's coming on. Is this all to do with the various remote viewing drawings you've had us all doing?
It is, because the topic, I started with the topic, and then I read something that a doctor had written about it, and then I sort of thought an experiment would be good, and then you will see why. So a number of our Patreons have been doing it, you've done it, and a couple of friends of the show have done it, and they've sent me results back. And initially, I was sort of scratching my head because you don't want to reverse engineer what you see in remote viewing. And then I realised that people actually had been remote viewing. I'll get into the story, but it will change it. I was genuinely shocked last night when I was putting the last few pieces of what people had sent me together. And I must say, if we had any merch, if we had any gold stars, Evan Diamond, thank you. Videos, images, you've excelled yourself, and thank you very much. And thank you to everybody else that sent me material in. You all know who you are. We've emailed each other, so thank you very much.
When I was doing it, it was funny because it was like I was deliberately trying, because people were sending DMs, weren't they, on the Patreon and sometimes on Facebook. I was deliberately trying not to look at them because I didn't want to be influenced by anything. But once I'd submitted what I'd done to you, I did kind of have a look, and I mean, Evan did a full video, which was really interesting. It reminded me of when we recorded, when you were recording what you were doing before, especially when we were doing Daz's target, just the process that you go through. And also this time, the process that I went through. I realise now I have this thing where I don't want to do the target initially, and I leave it. And I leave it, and I leave it. And I remember you saying, have you done the target? And I was like, oh, I've got to do it. And then I did it. And then I get to this point, and I did it with Daz's target, where I get really impatient and just want to complete it as a full image. And I did that this time. So again, I managed to break a lot of the rules that you're supposed to do on remote viewing in the way I approached it. But I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's so interesting now we've done a few to realise how you respond to it as a person. It's really interesting.
What I will do, I'll start telling you the story. Now, some of you might be screaming at me. I know what you're going to be saying. If you know this story, I do know what you're screaming at me, and we will come to that. Don't worry. For those of you who don't know, I'll let on what I mean in a minute. In January 2006, in New York, the patient of a well-known psychiatrist draws the face of a man that has been repeatedly appearing in her dreams. On more than one occasion, that man has given her advice on her private life, and the woman swears she's never met that man. The portrait lies forgotten in the psychiatrist's desk for a few days until one day another patient recognises that face and says that the man has often visited him in his dreams. He also claims he has never seen that man in his waking life. The psychiatrist decides to send the portrait to some of his colleagues that have patients with recurring dreams. Within a few months, 4 patients recognise the man as a frequent presence in their own dreams. All the patients refer to him as this man. This is the introduction to the website that refers to the phenomena of this man. And as I say, for all of you who know this, stop shouting at me, hold on. From January 2006 until today, at least 8,000 people have claimed they have seen this man in their dreams. And these are people from cities all over the world. At the moment, there is no ascertained relation or common trait amongst the people that have dreamed of seeing this man. Moreover, no living man has ever been recognised as resembling the man in the portrait by the people who are seeing it in their dreams. And this website, I'm reading directly from it now, was set up to help those who have seen this man in their dreams and to foster communication among them, To understand who this man is and why he appears in an apparently patternless array of situations in the dreams of such diverse human subjects. And so I'll give you an example of a couple of the dreams that are quoted. I've had this recurring dream for some years now. A tall, dark man shows me a picture and asks me if I can recognise my father in it. The man in the picture is this man. I've never seen him before, and he looks nothing like my dad. Nevertheless, I inexplicably answer that I do recognise my father. At this point, I usually wake up feeling very peaceful. Another one, I've always had this dream of lying in the sky over my city and observing my friends from up there. Since I moved to another house, I started meeting this man while flying. Not every single time that I have this dream about flying, but often enough. He flies too, but he never speaks. And there's loads and loads and loads and loads of these comments that are very similar. As you can imagine, it's just people talking about a variety of dreams that they've had.
And this man, I've not heard the story before, but in their drawings and descriptions, this man is the same man, similar features, similar look.
It's exactly the same. It's the same man. I can show you a picture of him in a minute. Okay. And the picture is this man. If you Google this man, you will see it on the website.
I'll have a look.
And then the person who originated this website was interviewed in Vice magazine. This is probably one of the very, very few interviews with him. Andrea Natella. I really want to pronounce it as Nutella, but it isn't. It's Natella. And he says it was during the winter of 2008 when this man popped up in a dream, and he invited me to create a website to find an answer to his own appearance. I used facial composite software, and I took the first one I could find and designed this face around this idea of a round shape, bushy eyebrows, thin lips, receding hairline. So this is a quote, as I say, directly from the Vice magazine article.
Yeah, I got him here. You're right. It's really kind of almost Noel and Liam Gallagher eyebrows, isn't it? And then
yes, other people have likened him to that composer who does all of the musical theatre. It is.
Oh, Andrew Lloyd Webber.
That's it, yes, Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah, and the receding hairdo in a kind of weird parting. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And in fact, the Vice reporter says the sketch on the website kind of looks like what I stereotypically imagine. Well, he says, when I think of a paedophile. Right. But he says it also looks like a dentist I used to have, like a composite of various different people.
Yeah.
And in many of the accounts of these interactions with people, this man, this is what Andrea says, this man appears to be very passive, and his presence alone is stronger than anything he could say or do. So it's like he's having an influence on, I guess, he's helping direct the dream without being an active participant sometimes.
Yeah.
The repeating appearance seems somehow active in itself, yes, as he says, violent even. Although through the reports you've received, he's asked, have you any examples of concrete actions taken by this man? And he goes on to explain, well, there's two big categories of dream. The first one is nightmares, where this man scares them, chases them, kidnaps them and whatever. And the second is completely different. This is when this man is friendly and he just stares at the dreamer sometimes, helping them. And it seems like he's almost like representing some sort of yin and yang in his dreams. He goes on and sort of gives this philosophy, which on the surface of it seems a little contrived, and you might find out why in a minute. When Vice ask him, what do you think this man wants? He says, well, we're trying to understand this point, but we've not got a clue at the moment, or indeed if he wants anything at all. One thing seems clear. This man is a kind of wormhole. Some people are confident he is just my invention, but I'm only a point in a time loop. This is where it gets a little bit weird. This man has dreamed even before I could draw his face. This man was dreamed of, before I could even draw his face, even before the first person identified him in New York. We have evidence of people dreaming about him 30 years ago. Every day we receive news about kids who have begun dreaming about him sometime when they were children. I believe it's not this man who does the time travelling. It's us who move through a fourth dimension. It's a loop with no chicken nor the egg. So this is even more... Right. It gets kind of quite weird when he's talking like this.
So there's all kinds of stuff going on there, isn't there? Time traveller, interdimensional being, almost, we don't like the word, but almost a demonic presence, sometimes an angelic presence, but from another dimension is what they the guy who set this website believes.
Well, don't be too disappointed when I tell you that Vice had to publish an article the same day, because it is actually the invention of a guerrilla marketing company called Guerrilla Marketing that Andreas runs. And he specialises in subversive hoaxes and creates, in the grand tradition of groups like the Situationists, which is a European sort of group of art hoaxers, he tries to make sort of performance art out of guerrilla marketing.
Right.
And in fact, it took in quite a lot of people into... so that website, that not all of the dreams there are fictional. Some people do claim that they dreamed about this man. So the story doesn't end there. So all of you who were saying, okay, Ben, you've been taken in by a hoax that is obviously a hoax, and Vice magazine pointed it out. Yes, but the story continues and goes further and goes into a weird place, and hence why we get into the remote viewing.
Okay.
One of the things, the reason why this guerrilla marketing works, it has been posited by, I read an article from a psychiatrist who was talking about why it captured the imagination. It's because this face is in the uncanny valley. It looks like a man, but uncannily not. It sort of jolts us to make us think about whether we know it or not. So, the first thing you did was kind of say, oh, what does he remind me of? Who does he look like?
Yeah.
And that's because of this uncanny valleyness of it. And if you aren't familiar with that, the guy who came up with the theory is a guy called Mori, and his original hypothesis states that the appearance of a robot, so he was describing robots, is made more, as it's made more human, some observers' emotional response to the robot becomes increasingly positive and empathetic. And it increases, and more so, the more human it is, until a point where it is almost human, and then it becomes revulsion. So that idea of like a sci-fi robot, or like you think about the robots in the like Metal Mickey from our childhood, or the robots that used to advertise Smash. They've kind of got two eyes and a mouth, and they're like, oh, they're pretty, they're okay, they look fun and friendly. And then you get something like, I was particularly spooked by, there was a dancer in the 80s and early 90s who specialised in robotic dancing, and he would wear like a sort of an all-in-one-ish grey suit, and he had a mask which completely covered his face, so it was like a I don't know, like a human silhouette of a face. You could see all the contours,
right?
But it looked like a sort of a model of a human face. And it would he would like do this robotic, the movements and the motor movements, and dance to, I guess, sort of electronic music. And that revulsion comes in when he's performing on a TV show, and then he stops the performance, and in the costume, before he takes the mask off, walks across like a human to meet the interviewer. It's terrifying because it's that uncanny valley. And I think that is what we're getting from this face.
There's bits of this, I don't know why, are reminding me of the Techno Viking. Do you remember the Techno Viking?
I don't remember the Techno Viking. What's that?
That was, well, the story behind that was, it was I think he was either German, or I think it was a German artist who filmed at some protest techno rave thing, and there's this whole scene where this incredibly tall, muscly guy who looks like a Viking has a bit of a disagreement with somebody, and then starts walking down the road dancing in a techno style, and there's no real narrative to the video. But as soon as YouTube started, this thing just went absolutely crazy, like millions and millions of views. So if you've not seen it, if you search Techno Viking, the original, you'll know what I mean. There's something really surreal, and you can't work out, like your guerrilla marketing guy, whether it's been deliberately staged or whether he's just captured this moment. But as a watcher, you're so drawn in. And at the time, and weirdly, I watched it again the other night, I'm like, why am I so drawn to this? And why is everybody that's seen it so drawn to it? And it might be a little bit of that uncanny valley thing, because this guy, he looks like a Norse god in a pair of shorts doing this techno dancing, and
to be clear, it's a real guy. It's not CGI or anything.
Yeah. Have a pause. Just have a look. Do you know this?
Yeah. Now I've seen that. That is.
So we've just I just made Ben watch it to see if he knows what I mean. There is something about it, and there's really weird stories around it that. You know, you can read some versions of it where it said it was set up by the director, but he wanted to make it look like it was natural rather than staged. Then there's others that say, no, it was just he captured this thing. There's this whole sub-story of the guy who was Techno Viking being really unhappy that it went viral on the internet and sued the guy who filmed it to have it taken down. So the guy who created it couldn't do it, and there's been lots of parodies and stuff, or there was at the time. So it just took on this life. And I think it made me think of it when you were talking about this guy in your story, because there's something about the guy, the Techno Viking, that's kind of almost out of this worldly. I don't know, because he's so ripped and tall and Viking looking.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's weird.
It is weird. It is very weird. And I think that is right. That is what draws you in, and that was the genius of that image.
Yeah.
But that image also reminded me and other people of something which is a lot more real, and that is the smiling man, Indrid Cold.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, this story starts with Woodrow Derenberger and a mysterious encounter he had with an almost human grinning man on the back roads of West Virginia one November night, and how it would affect his family for over a quarter of a century. In fact, you might be familiar with this character if you watched the Mothman film. It comes up in there.
Yeah.
In 1966, Woodrow was a sewing machine salesman living in Mineral Wells, West Virginia. And on that November night, Derenberger said he was returning from a business trip in Marietta, Ohio, when he had to stop to adjust the sewing machine in the back of his truck. Once he got back on the road, he noticed lights ahead of him. Thinking that these were lights of a police officer, he stopped, only to discover that the lights didn't belong to a car, but to what he said was an aircraft that looks like a kerosene lamp chimney. That's a strange description, isn't it?
And I also want to know what he's got a sewing machine in the back of his truck for.
Because he's a sewing machine salesman.
Oh, well, that won't explain it then.
That bit I can explain.
Mystery solved. Thanks for listening.
Derenberger said that a man stepped out and approached his truck. He looked perfectly natural and normal as any human being, Derenberger told Ronald Maines during an interview on WTAP-TV in Parksburg, West Virginia, the day after the encounter. His face looked like he had a good tan, a deep suntan. He was not too dark, but he was just like he'd been out in the sun a lot and had like this healthy appearance. His hair was combed straight back and it was a dark brown. He seemed to have a good thick head of hair. His eyebrows, his face, his features were very normal. I don't believe that he looked any different from any other man that you would meet on the street. But he wasn't normal. Derenberger said he had a large grin and he kept his arms folded and his hands up under his armpits. And as he looked at him, his grin got wider and wider. You know that sort of horror movie trope? Yeah. Unnaturally large. And his smile never moved. He spoke, Derenberger said, telepathically. He asked me to roll down the window on my right-hand side of the truck. Don't do that. Yeah. Don't do that. What are you doing? Stop. But he did as he was asked. And as he described during this interview, this man stood there, and at first he asked me what I was called, and I told him my name. And he asked me, why aren't you frightened? And I said, I don't know. And he said, don't be frightened. We wish you no harm. We wish you. See, that's weird as well.
Yeah. I thought he was then going to say, how much for the sewing machine?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's a good model, that, and a good price. He said that he told him that he only wished him happiness. And when I asked him his name, he said he was called Cold. Indrid Cold. Yeah. Naturally, Derenberger reported his encounter to the police, and by the next day, the media frenzy surrounding the story took off. He agreed to this interview that I just described, and when taking part in the interview, there were members of the state police, some people from Wood County Airport, Parksburg Police, and a representative from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is based quite close by. And for 30 minutes, the men peppered Derenberger with questions about the strange encounter. After the interview aired, however, others came forward with claims that they had also seen a figure matching Derenberger's description of Indrid Cold. One man reported that a man matching Indrid Cold's description tried to flag him down, but he'd been too afraid to stop. Other people said that they had seen lights and these fluttering vehicles on the road. And Derenberger said that other people had told him that the road that he had been stopped on, lots of people had said they were very familiar with the strangeness of the area. Several witnesses also said that they'd seen Derenberger stopped on the road talking to the man. They'd actually seen the conversation happening.
There's something about this story it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's not your stereotypical UFO encounter. It's very David Lynch, Twin Peaksy, isn't it? It
is, and it's also very John Keel, which is obviously why it's in the Mothman prophecies. And this, I think, probably a lot of people listening, if you haven't encountered the Indrid Cold before, the name might be familiar, and you might have known it from comic books as well. It does come up in comic books now, as well as this character. It's very like Joker, like very Joker-like from the Batman. Yeah. From the Batman. From the Batman. News coverage eventually died down, but Cole's visitation continued. Derenberger reported that he was visited often by the strange grinning man over the course of the next month. Eventually, Derenberger's family said they too had seen Cold and other strange things. Although he wrote a book about his visits, nothing came good from recounting this encounter. In fact, it didn't just affect negatively upon him, but also on his family and friends. The family received years of harassing phone calls and blamed lost jobs and friends on Derenberger's tales of Indrid Cold. And Derenberger suffered from painful headaches and depression, and eventually his wife divorced him. Derenberger moved away from the area to escape the notoriety. After years of living somewhere else, however, Derenberger moved back to Mineral Wells area before his death in 1990 at the age of 74, 23 years after Indrid Cold supposedly pulled him over on the highway. Whilst he never recanted his statement, he never spoke of him again. But he did write a book, and we're going to come to this.
Okay.
But where we're getting to with all of this is that this wide, constant smile, this appearance, although humanoid, is distinctly otherworldly. And this is what is fueling the public's fascination with him. This is from this report from this psychiatrist. The resemblance between him and the Joker and other sort of designed to be creepy characters is obvious. They share this creepy grin, this edge of insanity, and this hobby for stalking. This, you see how similar it is to this man, like stalking in your sleep?
Yeah.
One particularly captivating element of Indrid's appearance is this attire reminiscent of a classic aviators ensemble. This is how it's described. They notice that his garment is a shiny green or blue suit, occasionally paired with a black belt. Remarkably, the suit exhibited like this reflective quality, enhancing this ethereal presence. And the fabric of the suit is unfamiliar to onlookers. Again, it adds to this weirdness. And so when I show you this is from the original sketch from Derenberger. You've seen the picture of this man, right? You've seen this man.
Yep.
So this is Indrid Cold.
Yep.
Suspiciously similar, aren't they?
Yeah, very, very. Yeah, just that one's a more kind of horrified version, isn't it? It's more
horrified. And it did remind me, I think other people have picked up on this meme. Recently there was a film out called Smile.
Right.
Have you seen that horror movie?
No.
It's one of those it's a good little, I guess, it's a good little trope in there. The idea is that you sort of get infected with a thing. We're never certain what it is, whether it's an entity or something. But before you rip yourself to pieces, you have this big, uncannily large smile because it's so weird. And I did read an interview with the director, and he said there is just something so the human brain cannot cope with a big grin but also being threatened. It's something that makes all of your innermost monkey go crazy.
Yeah.
This is why I sort of thought, well, the this man thing, very similar, and the suggestion of features that make us wonder if we've ever met anyone like that, as it is so disturbing. And our brain manufactures a link between scary moments and in our lives, even dreams, and then convinces us that it is possible that what we have seen is actually in existence, could be a real person. That is not my theory. I was going to say to you, we have to get that quote from Monty Python, though. This is my theory and what it is. That is not my theory. It is the theory of a Dr. C. Shelley, who was contributing to a newspaper article about cold. So I'm not sure whether Dr. C. Shelley is man or woman, so they have this idea that because both this man and Indrid Cold and the Joker and stuff, they all appear to be human, but they're not, and they're threatening. And this tricks our brain into thinking, well, maybe I have been threatened like that. And so that's sort of where this idea comes from. And that's why I wanted to do this RV experiment, because
is that doctor also known as Smiley Shelley?
Smiley Shelley. It's better because the worst thing at school, we had a kid whose surname was Shelley, and they instantly become Smelly Shelley, don't they?
Smiley
I know.
Shelley's better.
Smiley Shelley is better, and I really felt sorry for Smelly Shelley because he really wasn't. But anyway,
he's listening now, going, "All right, I've just managed to shake that off after all these years, and then you broadcast it on your podcast."
So the target I set, the enigmatic Malcolm 2000, that's cool. That I called it that because I thought, I wonder what I would call a robot that looked uncanny, and I thought I'd call it the Malcolm 2000.
What's interesting, I've got a bit of a confession when I did the target, because I was out and about and I had a couple of hours in between meetings and I couldn't find the name of it, and then I went, it doesn't matter, so I just referred to it as Ben's target. So
I don't think it does.
I don't think it matters, but
yeah. No. But so the target was the face of this man, and I wanted to know how people embellish the image in the task. Do they make it even more human? Do they consider it to be an actual entity or a picture? You know, maybe people started like drawing a picture of a piece of paper. You know, you could easily do that. Or if there is a reality to all of this, and I thought we might uncover a reality. And stay tuned, everyone, because I did find something in the data, not the noise, in the data, that I think you will find very surprising. Evan, thank you again for your video and the images that you sent. I thought there's some themes that you've got which other people had, which were circles, sets of two things. And it was those sets of two things that, so the circle and the sets of two things made me think, I wonder if you're getting a face, because you also sort of had some bushy-like things, and we'll come on to some other people. Peter, you had some cacti.
Well, I also had, it's interesting, now I know.
Just before you do that, I just want to say that Evan also had something very, very important, which we'll come on to, which was 2 cooling towers.
Okay.
What
I had that's making me think. So I did 2 drawings, and then I did one using prompts in AI because I got a bit impatient and I wanted to create a fully finished piece. And if Daz Smith is listening, he's rolling his eyes going, what the hell did you do that for? But my first one, I had this jaggedy, consistent image. So I drew an arrowhead which had teeth in it. So, you know, they call it's not teeth as in teeth. So I kept getting that jaggedy, teethy thing. I too got circles. My second one, I'm just showing Ben now.
Yes, I noted. I've got a description of that. So it's kind of like a human shark head, basically.
Again, with the jaggedy teeth.
With jaggedy teeth, yes.
And then I've got a cactus on that one. Not so much on the other one, but I did get my other one was a huge hole in the desert, which again, a circle, and there was a circular shape floating and a circular clock. But it's circle.
Well, no, don't, because you also got the two circles. So initially, when I was looking at this, I was thinking, again, like with Evan's cooling towers, like, is it two eyes? Were you drawing two faces? But you also had some military men talking to a civilian, didn't you?
It was actually talking to a scientist.
Ah, okay.
So that was in my mind. But yeah, civilian in that sense, wearing dark goggles kept coming to my mind.
Right. Okay, so... But there are three military men around a non-military person in that instance, and there's also bushiness around there.
He's kind of a 50s looking guy, 1950s.
Oh, I see. Yes. Right. Yes, that makes sense. I also had two other people say that they had seen holes in the ground.
Oh, really?
One person drew a whole clown. But apparently it was a whole clown. It wasn't just a clown's face. But interesting. But apparently a friendly clown's face. But it was definitely a clown.
So that would have had the smile then.
It did have the smile, but it wasn't. It wasn't nasty. But I just thought. So that's the first sort of human face.
Yeah.
Overall, I had 14 responses.
Wow.
As I say, one drew a face, part of a clown image, smiling, as you say, lots of circles and holes. This is the thing. These are the notes I've made on the description, which could be face or feature related.
Yeah.
But I couldn't escape this notion of tall thing. So Evan said, I didn't want to, like, Evan, you asked me, because you said I keep seeing a zigzag image and I keep thinking the Eiffel Tower. And you have to be so, in remote viewing, you wouldn't be led. So I just said, interesting, tell me more. And I think you sort of you eventually you sort of went through the towers, but you did definitely have some towers. You had what looked like cooling towers, and then you had other tall things. You have cactuses, and
in my first set of drawings, I had this image, and it turned out to be I think I drew a jeep, but it was underwater. You know those huge underwater forests with the almost huge, massive vegetation coming up from the floor to the ceiling. That was the first image I had like that. Now, weirdly, that came to me in a dream, which kind of ties into...
So describe what you've drawn there a bit more.
So I've got... so the first thing that came into my head was, if you do a search on, like, underwater kelp forest... You see these massive kelp towers, let's call them that. I know I'm just playing with words, but coming up from the seabed, but they can be absolutely huge. And then I had this was in a half dream state, and then I had this constant word in my head that something is hidden amongst all that. Something is hidden. And that's when I got a kind of Jeep, US military Jeep idea, and then I put that at the bottom of the ocean with these huge kelp towers next to it. I mean, I haven't really drawn that to scale, but when I was thinking of them, they were really big.
Right, okay. That's interesting. The first thing that I was thinking of was I was trying to understand what we might be looking at with these sort of tall buildings, because I do think round and twos, I do think that there is definitely an indication there.
Right.
So you've had a sort of a face. We've had a face, but I was trying not to backwards engineer it, but I thought it was perhaps a face, and then.
Sorry, can I just stop you, because I just realised on my second one, I don't know if this is relevant. I've got the little people at the bottom of this huge round thing, again with the jaggedy thing in the middle.
Okay, just for listeners, you've got two men and there's a tall thing behind them.
Yeah,
okay.
and it was a bit like, I guess the image-wise, if anyone's seen Arrival, the sci-fi movie, it was a bit like that shape was in my mind, but it had a jaggedy surface rather than a smooth surface.
Okay, I'm going to drop a couple of bombs now. So the first thing I thought was, you remember in the description, kerosene lamp chimney?
Yeah.
That felt a bit of a stretch. I think so many people were getting chimneys and tall objects. Evan absolutely drew two chimneys.
Wow.
So, but, okay, here's the thing. There's two things here.
Sorry, are you going to tell us why the chimneys come into this?
Yes,
right.
yes. So, I don't know why. I just had this idea. So, if you remember, I was describing where Derenberger was. He was driving on the highway between Marietta and Mineral Wells. They're not far away at all. In fact, I can show you on a map here. This is the highway between them here. So this is the road here
where he saw
where he saw the entity.
Yeah.
Just over here, within view of this road, look what there is.
Big power station. So there's two big cooling towers, the big chunky fat ones, and then three smaller. Interesting. So
there is a power station that he would have driven past with two big fat cooling towers.
Interesting.
And cooling towers, as I'm sure everybody knows, they don't emit smoke, they emit steam.
Yeah.
And you drew two holes with water in. That is basically sort of what you get at the bottom of a cooling tower.
Yeah.
So I then began to think, well, maybe I accidentally set the target, because this does happen. And this wasn't supposed to just be an RV experiment. This was supposed to be...
Was that your target, or was that...
No. My target was this man.
Yeah.
But I knew that I was trying to make an association between him and Indrid Cold.
Yeah.
And sometimes when the viewer is... the setter does this, I have read that sometimes people remote view the wrong thing because the setter isn't entirely clear what it is that they're looking for. I thought it was that image of this man.
Yeah.
But then there's more, because that I thought, well, that's extraordinary, because we've got tall things, we've got two cooling towers, we've obviously got the water, and you've got the idea of the men speaking to him.
Yeah.
And who afterwards in the interview, and in your image you've got three men, and in the image you've just described to me you've got two more men.
Yeah.
And then somebody else, just as I was putting all this together, they said, "Oh, I forgot to do your remote viewing thing, and I tried it, and all I've got are three men in black." Okay, so this is where things get really weird. I think we can agree we've got towers.
Yeah.
We've got two lots of people who've drawn three, but the image you just showed me is two people underneath a tower. Now let me just show you the cover art from the book that Woody wrote about Indrid Cold. It is, in this case it is three men in black type characters underneath a series of towers, two of which seems to be of uniform height. Yeah. And around it is a sort of a leany lamppost and some other sort of ethereal things. Wow. But there's definitely a leany lamppost. So this idea of tall things comes into it. And these men in black on the front cover are kind of faceless. They've got the glasses on, but they're faceless. There were three that you described, three that somebody said to me, and then two on your image there with a tall thing behind it. Now, there's a lot going on here because...
does this mean anything? A couple of phrases kept coming to my mind. I've written under the two people, lost and found. And then I've written underneath that, hold tight or it will be lost.
So the other thing that Evan found, which he thinks was the Jewish symbol hey, means look or behold.
Okay.
So you've both kind of got that theme going through. But again, I really, really, really don't want to find things that aren't there. Yeah. But
you don't want to post-rationalise.
I don't want to post-rationalise, but I think what I might have done is accidentally got people looking at the night when Indrid Cold was seen.
Okay.
which makes me think two things. One, either I was thinking about Indrid Cold too much because I'd already researched the story when I knew what was going to happen, and I was going to draw this association between them. Or perhaps it proves that Indrid Cold, that something did happen that night, and the fact that this man looks a bit like Indrid Cold means that perhaps Andreas got his idea for that photo fit, and the sort of the general impression of it is very similar, and maybe have been derived partly by Indrid Cold. Yes, and I think I accidentally asked people to look for Indrid Cold, and people found different parts of the story in their remote viewing, or it didn't work at all. But I just felt like it was so weird that Evan got two cooling towers.
That's amazing.
And there's an enormous power station right by that road. Right by that road.
And is there anything to do with lost time in that case?
There is, not that I have read, no.
Because that's the other thing that, those Salvador Dali melting clocks, that was the other thing that kept coming to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that was a major part of it. There might be something I'm missing, but I don't believe that he feels like there was any particular missing time. But I thought that was generally a pretty good...
Well, I think two things have struck me. If we talk about Evan's one, to get those cooling towers, I think is amazing. I also think you're underplaying the clown.
Yeah, maybe.
That, you were looking for this guy with a kind of spooky, weird, smiling face, and somebody drew a happy clown. You can't get much spookier or weird than that.
That's true. That is true. Out of 14 people, not one person didn't describe some... No, that's not true. Apart from the clown and the person who said about the Men in Black, everybody else sort of said ponds, round things. I had quite a lot of, hoops. Hoops was something somebody said. And that's why I kept thinking, that's interesting. It's sort of a face. It's a face.
Yeah.
But then these other things, which I thought were noise, but actually might be signal. That's why I'm thinking we've actually all been looking at Indrid Cold.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. That process. And I had that thing again that we had the first time we did it, and when we did Daz Smith's target, I can't remember what Daz described it as. Fear of something. I want to say chai, but that's like chai latte, but it's something like that. It's fear of something. So it's the fear of getting it wrong, but also the fear of getting it right. I felt both of those again doing it.
Yeah, and you suddenly feel pressure, because it's disappointing if you get it too far wrong, because you think, it didn't work. But if you get it dead on, you've then had an encounter with the paranormal experience that you can't explain, and that's weird too.
The ones I've done, I think those, like you said, those two people with the big structure, I think that's interesting. I actually think this obsession of mine with jaggedy things. So I've got the jaggedy shark face, and then I've got the jaggedy arrowhead. But, they do call them teeth, don't they? So there was something there. And I also did stairs that were jaggedy stairs. So there's a lot of jaggediness going on for me.
Like Cole's mouth.
Yeah. But again, it is hard to know whether you're just kind of cramming it in there, isn't it? It's hard to know. You know what? It made me realise doing this. Like I said, I put some time into it. I had that thing where I was almost trying to get into your brain. Why? Because I started thinking, we've done RV before. Why are we doing it now? What is he trying to... So, I just watched again, Oppenheimer was going through my mind quite a lot. So I was slightly worried that was influencing what I was doing. And And then I was almost going, what would Ben pick? What would Ben pick? What would Ben pick? Which was the wrong way of doing it. And then I got this urge to do the AI thing of just like, I'm going to nail it. It's going to be perfect. And completely the wrong way of doing it, I think. So what is interesting, you know, when I've seen other people do it who do it for a living, you know, this can go on for over a period of time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And maybe next time we do it, we should do that of just almost set it, a bit like we did with the Tulpa project. We almost keep it going over a period of weeks and have people working on something. Yeah, just to see how it develops. I guess, you know, there is a danger then the more drawings you have, the more you can go back and go, oh, that's that. So you're conscious of that. So
I don't want to do that, but I think, like, I was struggling to draw a conclusion. I mean, when I looked at Cold's eyes, you think, well, that does look like two cooling towers from above, but then, you know, you could. It's. I think that's it's a bit of a reach. It's a bit of a reach, and it certainly wouldn't have helped us in the Cold War.
But also round objects.
They're common, aren't they?
And it's reminded me of that Eiffel Tower thing as well, because I remember seeing a Derren Brown thing of, you know, if you want somebody to, you know, if you say to somebody, think of a giant object in a city, you know what I mean? Everyone will go with the Eiffel Tower. So there are certain things that people will go with. So I'm just wary of that. But
I agree.
Yeah, I think Evans Cooling Towers, and for me, the clown's face. Yeah. It's got to be, right?
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. Well, that was sent to me by somebody who calls themselves Donald S. So thank you, Donald S. That's very kind.
Brilliant.
I think what's my conclusion? My conclusion is that I think that it was a very interesting experiment that a lot of people were drawn into, the This Man one.
Yeah.
I think that Indrid Cold is one of the most terrifying sort of meme characters, and I do think that Derenberger definitely did see something. I think when we started looking at it there, it's not an obvious conclusion, but it does seem to be statistically relevant that what a number of the memes and tropes that we see in the things that people have sent back lean more into Cold than they do into This Man, maybe meaning that in the peculiar world of remote viewing that we don't fully understand how it works, people veer towards the true thing and the thing that is tangible rather than the made-up story from a marketing company. And then that begs the question of, does it mean that perhaps there is more truth to Indrid Cold than perhaps just as, I don't know, just like a fairy tale character?
Or a psychological phenomenon.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. When you were saying in terms of the target, so in your mind, was the target just Indrid Cold? Or was it the night?
No, my target was This Man.
Okay.
So it was that image off the marketing website.
Because because in that sense, maybe you're right. Maybe people were trying to tap into the night that he was seen because, you know, in time and space, it's like picking a time and space rather than, This Man in that sense as a target is so broad. I know it's not in terms of the images you could get back, but I like that. It's interesting, that idea that people could be tapping into that night or other appearances. So in that way, people would come up with all sorts of different things, wouldn't they? Yeah. Interesting. Really fascinating. There's something about the remote viewing experience that's really exciting. At times I kind of feel, no, we're shoehorning something in, but then you have little bits where you go, I don't know.
No, I mean, with the professionals, there is definitely something going on, and it's so alluring that we manage to do things which we think are close, and we have to be strict with ourselves and say maybe we're not. We're just a couple of people. It's the equivalent of playing around with CB radios when the professionals have they're talking to each other across the ocean that was the worst metaphor I could think of, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's the difference between a mobile phone and people using tin cans over a bridge with a string. Yeah. And we're still at the string stage. But the fact that it's a repeatable and accessible phenomena that appears to hold some results, I find extraordinary. And I was, in this case, as I say, I was only trying to get closer to what this idea of these faces is and whether it is fully a hoax. And I think we've got to the point where I can't answer either way, but I do, well, I've said my piece. You know what I think.
Well, like I said, I wonder if we should do this as our next ongoing project. I'll have a think about that, of a kind of target, and do it over a period of weeks rather than just kind of like I did, rushing to some kind of conclusion. I think that's interesting. So we'll have a think about that. But I love it. Every time we do remote viewing, something comes up.
It really does. It really does.
Excellent. Well, good. And thank you to everyone who took part in that. That's so good of you. And who really engaged with it. It's really lovely that you've done that, and we really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. Thank you.
I think I may have finally finished my book on exorcism, so hopefully that'll be what we're covering next week.
Marvellous. If you want to help us buy more books and keep us in the pens and paper for remote viewing, it is patreon.com/TQM pod.
And also, if you go there now, you'll find our extra scoop where we chat a little bit more about today's episode and talk a bit more about what we're working on. So that's a Patreon exclusive as well. So check that out. Come and join us. That'd be great.
It's a very deep and warm pool.
Indeed.
I don't even know what I'm saying. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you the quantum mechanics?